Jason Chandler was glued to his phone on the couch until his wife of nearly 10 years, Karen, called with some pretty shocking news. Earlier, a private detective had revealed that Karen had been lying about going to Honolulu with her lover. Jason thought about how naive he'd been, having been with her for 10 years. Now, her lies had shattered him, and he took a sip of his coffee, thinking about their history. They'd met in college 13 years ago, both studying business, and their romance blossomed, leading to marriage post-graduation. Jason joined his dad's tire business, learning various roles and getting promoted to head the accounting department. He wanted to inherit the company from his dad and take over from Mike Allen, the retiring CFO. After getting married to Karen, he got a job as a realtor, doing really well even during tough market times. They lived comfortably, with a nice house and new cars, and seemed to be happy in their marriage, though they didn't have any kids, which he saw as a blessing. Even though she did have some fertility issues, she decided to get a tubal ligation, but he suggested adoption. Recently, she's been going out a lot more, which has made him suspicious, especially when she's been coming home late. He's asked her about it, but she says it's because of work stress. One night, he asked her what she was doing out so late, and she said she was just out. He saw it as a blessing at first, but then Karen started talking about fertility issues and tubal ligation, even though she'd said adoption would be better. Then recently, he noticed she was going out a lot more, and even though she said it was because of work stress, he thought there was something else going on. So when she came home one night looking a bit disheveled and smelling of cigarettes, he asked her what she was doing out so late. She got a bit defensive and said, "It's my business, Jace, I can take care of myself." Jason was a bit surprised by the way she'd spoken, because she usually wasn't like that. When he saw how she looked, she apologized and said, "I'm sorry, Jace. It's just work stress getting to me. You've handled market pressures before without this." He pointed out that she'd said that before, and asked her what was going on. She was a bit disheveled, and her clothes smelt of cigarettes. "Just hang out, have a few drinks," she replied defensively. "It's my business, Jace. I can take care of myself." Jason was taken aback by her tone, which was a departure from her usual demeanor. Seeing his reaction, she softened. "I'm sorry, Jace," she apologized. "It's just work stress getting to me. You've handled market pressures before, without this." He pointed out what had changed. "It's tougher than ever out there. Competition's fierce, and the pressure's relentless. I'm on your side, though, Jace. I'm here for you." She hugged him, expressing regret. "You're right, dear. I'm sorry. But please freshen up," he requested. "You're right, I'm sorry. But please freshen up." It was smoky at the club. She conceded, heading for a shower. He was already asleep when she joined him in bed. Time passed, and their relationship changed. They were together less often, and when they did meet up, it was just once a fortnight. She wasn't as interested in his life anymore, and he noticed that she wasn't being honest with him. For example, she said she was at the office when she wasn't. He didn't want to confront her, because he thought she might have a strong reaction. He thought about how many more lies she might have told. He thought about it, lying awake next to her. He looked at her, and you could tell he was worried. "What's on your mind, Jace?" Time passed, and their relationship changed. They were together less and less, and he noticed that she wasn't being very honest with him. She even lied about where she was when she wasn't at work. He didn't want to upset her, but he was worried. He thought to himself, "What's going on in your head, Jace?" She asked, "I'm worried." He told her about his concerns. "Do you still love me?" she asked. "Of course I love you," he replied. "You know that, right?" "I don't know," he said. "It's been a while since you said that, and we're not as close as we used to be. You're out more than you're in." "I'm sorry. Work has been really busy." "I love you," she said. "Please trust me." She asked, "I'm worried." "Yeah, about what?" "About what you said." I don't know, it's been a while since you said it and we've been going our separate ways. I'm sorry, it's just work's been really busy. I love you, trust me." can you show me more? Of course, babe. Kiss me. They made love that night, which made Jason's worries go away for a bit, but he was still worried. A month later, the same thing happened again. Jason started to think there was something more going on. Then one day, his friend Ron asked to meet him urgently. Sure, let's grab a beer, Jason said. I can't explain it over the phone, Ron insisted. Let's meet at the bar. And Ron dropped a bombshell. I saw your wife today. Ron disclosed, yeah, she's in real estate, showing houses. Jason shrugged. I'm certain, Ron affirmed, but I never knew real estate involved such closeness. Seriously, Jason exclaimed. You must be kidding. I wish I were Ron. I saw Karen with another man, holding hands and kissing. It wasn't innocent. That can't be right. Jason protested. Are you sure it was Karen? Ron showed him a photo, confirming. Hey, I saw your wife today, Ron said, nodding. Yeah, she's showing people around some houses. Oh, really? Jason said, not sounding too convinced. I'm pretty sure Ron said that, but I didn't know real estate was a thing. Seriously? Jason said, shocked. What about Karen? I saw her with this other guy, holding hands and all. Oh, really? Ron said, looking a bit suspicious. Do you have a picture of that? Yeah, sure, Ron said, sending it over. What's your plan, Jason? Ron asked, looking a bit surprised. I'm not sure, Jason said. This whole thing has me totally blindsided. Hey, my friend's a PI, Ron said. Wanna connect you two? Let me know. I need some answers, Jason said, once they'd parted ways. Hey, you're back early, Ron said, surprised. Just in time. Where were you? Had a drink with Ron? Yeah, just a drink, Jason said. What are you up to this weekend? Jason asked, trying to sound casual. Well, I'm leaving early to go to the company convention. It starts this weekend, so I thought I'd get a head start. Where's it being held? He asked, trying to sound interested. Las Vegas, at the Westgate Resort Hotel. We're leaving on Friday after lunch. Wow, that's another award this year, then, he said, trying to sound congratulatory. Yeah, they're doing a party there. I'm so excited. Well, I'm at a loss, but I'm happy for you. My friend's a pilot, Ron, and he's offered to connect us. I'd love to know more about you, if that's okay. Jason said, trying to sound friendly. Yeah, it's all good. Where were you? Just having a drink with Ron. Everything's fine with your friend, right? Jason said, trying to sound reassuring. Oh, Karen's just being innocent. Jason, it's a nightmare. I'm glad we don't have Karen's reaction. It'd crush me if you ever betrayed me. I'd never do that. I love you too much. Glad to hear it. I'll kiss you, then, he replied, trying to sound affectionate. He explained everything. Jason shared that your friend isn't really up to much. Oh, Karen's been unfaithful, he replied. Yeah, Jason replied, it's a nightmare. I'm glad we don't have Karen's reaction. It would crush me if you ever betrayed me. He remarked, observing her subtle flinch. I'd never betray you, she assured, embracing him. I love you too much. Glad to hear it, he replied, kissing her. What brings you home early? He asked. Our company's convention starts this weekend. She explained that she wanted to pack early and spend time with him before they were apart. Where's it held? He inquired. Las Vegas, at the Westgate Resort Hotel, she answered. We leave on Friday after lunch. Another award this year? He asked, aware of her past achievements. I suppose, she replied. They kissed again, and he suggested celebrating there. What brings you home early? He asked, knowing full well the reason. Our company's convention starts this weekend. She wanted to pack early and spend time with him before they were apart. Where's it held? He asked. Las Vegas, at the Westgate Resort Hotel, she answered. We leave on Friday after lunch. He asked, knowing about her past achievements. They kissed again, and he suggested celebrating their anniversary in Vegas. She declined, citing work commitments. Disheartened, he agreed to celebrate later. The next day, he contacted Ron for a PI recommendation. Before lunch, he met with the investigator. Good morning, Mr. Chandler, the investigator greeted him in his cluttered office. Glad to meet you, Ron. What's the deal? Jason briefed him on Karen's Vegas trip. Vegas, huh? Jerry mused. You think she's up to something? Anniversary in Vegas. She said no, because of work, which was a shame. He agreed to celebrate later that day. He contacted Ron for a PI recommendation before lunch. He met with the investigator in his messy office. Good morning, Mr. Chandler, the investigator greeted him. Glad to meet you, Ron. Call me Jerry. What's the deal? Jason told him about Karen's Vegas trip. Vegas, huh? Jerry, you think she's up to something? Jason admitted. I've got contacts there who owe me favors. Jerry offered, we'll keep tabs on her and can set up surveillance if you give me a room number. It'll cost extra, expected as much. Jason nodded, but he needed to know the truth. Jerry handed him a digital audio recorder. Easy to use. Just slip it under her car seat. Voice activated. Retrieve it later. She usually parks at the airport. Jason, something there might be, Jason admitted. I've got contacts there who owe me favors. Jerry offered to keep an eye on her and set up surveillance if I gave him a room number. It'll cost extra, as much as you'd expect, Jerry said. Jason nodded, but I need to know the truth. Jerry handed him a digital audio recorder. It was easy to use, just slip it under her car seat, voice activated, and you can retrieve it later. She usually parks at the airport, Jason noted. Perfect, Jerry nodded. We'll handle it if she slips up. We'll know. Here's my private line for updates, thanks, Jason said, taking the number. Thanks, Jason, he said, taking a check from his personal account, not the joint one. They had separate personal accounts and agreed to allocate up to 10% of their earnings. Jason usually spent his money on clothes and gifts for Karen, saving for a cruise. Until now, that night, Karen packed. I'll handle it if she slips up, we'll know, Jerry nodded. Here's my private line for updates. Thanks, Jason, he said, taking the number. I'll write a check from my personal account, not the joint one. We have separate personal accounts, and we agreed to allocate up to 10% of our earnings. Jason usually spends his money on clothes and gifts for Karen, saving for a cruise. Until now, that night, Karen packed for the trip. Jason offered to help, noticing her excessive luggage. Curious, he peeked inside and found birth control pills, despite her previous claim of having taken them. He photographed her belongings, noting club attire and revealing bikinis, including an open micro bikini he'd never seen her wear. He discreetly placed an audio recorder in her car and ensured it was activated before locking up. This might be the last. Jason thought about how he'd never seen Karen wear that open micro bikini before, and how he'd never seen her look so relaxed. He put an audio recorder in her car and locked up. This might be the last time he saw her. He thought about how they were no longer as close as they'd been. The next morning, Karen gave him her hotel room number and said she'd call every night. Love you, she said, kissing him. Love you too, he replied, watching her drive off to work. He told Jerry her room number, and Jerry said, got it, thanks. He was ready to send his team out later. Karen called from the airport, planning to update him when she checked in. Time passed, and Jason thought about how he and Karen were no longer as close as they had been. The next morning, Karen gave him her hotel room number and promised to call every night. I love you, she said, kissing him. I love you too, he replied, watching her drive off to work. He told Jerry about Karen's room number, and Jerry said thanks. He was ready to send his team out later. Karen called from the airport, planning to update him when she checked in. I love you, she repeated. I love you too, baby, he echoed internally, concealing his doubts. When his father approached, sensing his distress, Jason confided in him, "That's rough, Dad." His father sympathized. "I never would have guessed." "Same here, Dad." Jason agreed, "If you need us, we're here." His father offered, "Thanks, Dad." Jason appreciated leaving work early. "I love you too, baby," she repeated. "Love you, too," he echoed, keeping his doubts to himself. When his dad came over, Jason told him, "That's rough, Dad. I never would have guessed." "Same here, Dad." "If you need us, we're here," his dad offered. "Thanks, Dad," Jason said, appreciating his dad leaving work early. He found Karen's car at the airport, retrieving the audio recorder. Despite the tidy car doubt, he was on the drive home. Karen called from the car. "Hey, just got here," she said. "Thanks for telling me," he acknowledged. "Just settling in," she continued. "I'll call you tonight." Love you too," he reciprocated at home, activating the audio recorder, hoping for nothing. He found Karen's car at the airport, retrieving the audio recorder. Despite his doubts about the tidy car, he was on the drive home. Karen called from the car, saying, "Hey, just got here." He told her, "Thanks for letting me know." She told him, "I'm just getting settled in." She continued, "I'll call you tonight." Love you too." He reciprocated at home, turning on the audio recorder, hoping for nothing. Incriminating mostly. There was road noise on her radio halfway through. However, reality hit. He listened to her conversation via Bluetooth. A man's voice greeted her, saying, "Hello, stallion," she flirted, saying, "Stud muffin." Jason scoffed internally, thinking, "Who's this clown? Last week was amazing." The man reminisced, saying, "Glad you enjoyed it." She giggled, saying, "Plans for next week?" There was some incriminating stuff, and road noise on her radio halfway through. But then reality hit. He listened to her conversation via Bluetooth. A baby's voice greeted her, "Hello, stallion." She flirted with a stud muffin. Jason scoffed internally, "Who's this clown? Last week was amazing," the man reminisced. "Glad you enjoyed it." She giggled. "Plans for next week are already arranged." He confirmed. "Did you tell your husband?" "Not yet," she admitted. "I've got it handled." He suspected anything. The man inquired nothing, she assured him. Clueless. "Hope you're right," he said. "Help believe anything," she boasted. "Okay," he conceded. Pulling up to the airport, she announced, "See you at the hotel tonight." "Okay, can't wait," he replied, "Bye, love, bye." He'd already arranged to meet her at the hotel that night. She admitted that she'd got it all sorted. He suspected that she was cheating on him, but she told him that he was clueless. "Hope you're right," he said. "I believe anything you say." She boasted that she was going to see him at the hotel that night. "See you at the hotel tonight," she said. "Okay, can't wait," he replied. "Bye, love, bye," she said, ending the call. Jason stared at the tape recorder, shocked by what he'd heard. He replayed the recording to make sure he hadn't misinterpreted her. She wasn't just cheating, she had plans for their anniversary week that didn't involve him. Frustrated, he cursed to himself and pondered the duration of her affair and who her partner was. Grabbing a beer, he sat at his desk. She ended the call, and Jason was shocked. He replayed the recording to make sure he hadn't misunderstood. She wasn't just cheating, she had plans for their anniversary week that didn't involve him. Frustrated and cursing, he thought about how long her affair had been going on for and who her partner was. Grabbing a beer, he sat at his desk and thought about recent events. Had he overlooked obvious signs? He questioned what else she might be concealing. He had respected her privacy, but now felt compelled to investigate. Knowing where she kept the key, he retrieved it from their jewelry box and headed to her office in the spare bedroom. He accessed the desk, driven by betrayal, to investigate. Inside, he uncovered a web of. Thinking about what had happened recently, he wondered if he'd missed any obvious signs. He questioned what else she might be hiding. He had respected her privacy, but now he felt like he had to investigate. Knowing where she kept the key, he got it from their jewelry box and went to her office in the spare bedroom. He looked inside, driven by betrayal, and found a web of lies. Karen had deceived him throughout their marriage shockingly. Her personal account held over $250, far more than their agreed-upon savings limit. Looking at her expenses, he found expensive gifts, including a fancy men's Rolex watch, probably for her lover. Her purchases also revealed expensive clothes and visits to Planned Parenthood for Fetid, which she paid for in cash. He pondered. He also found out about the abortions she'd had and how she'd been using birth control for years. Then he found a receipt for Plan B pills that she'd bought just a few days earlier. And there was more. He found a recent receipt for a big down payment on a flat in a rich area. He was wondering if it was her love nest or an exit strategy. The receipts revealed payments for utilities and new furniture, so he figured one of the keys he found was for her new place. He powered up her computer and found passwords listed under the keyboard. He accessed her email and was surprised to find her credentials saved, indicating her confidence in her secrecy. The receipts showed payments for utilities and new furniture, so he figured one of the keys he found was for her new place. He powered up her computer and found passwords listed under the keyboard. He accessed her email and was surprised to see her credentials saved, showing how confident she was in her secrecy. He found emails with Greg Wilson about their sexual encounters dating back nearly a year. He first noticed changes in her behavior. They first met in hotel rooms, then later in houses she was selling. One email from 6 months before answered some of his questions. "Did you handle that little issue, Greg?" he asked. "Yep," Karen replied. "I went." He found emails from Greg Wilson about their sex lives. They'd been doing it for almost a year, ever since she first started acting weird. They met in hotel rooms, then later in houses she was selling. Greg had sent an email 6 months earlier that answered some of his questions. "Did you handle that little issue?" Greg asked. "Yeah," Karen replied. "I went," and then said that she'd had an abortion. "Shame you didn't keep the baby," Greg said. "You could have said it was Jason's." "I can't do that," she said. "He thinks I can't have a baby. He'd figure out it wasn't his." 6 months ago, Jason realized that was when she first started lying. Damn, he thought to himself. She's a deceitful, cheating woman. He scrolled through. Greg had suggested they have sex in Karen's marital bed, but she refused. "I won't betray Jason like that." She wrote to Greg that the idiot has no idea. He replied that he wouldn't do it. She insisted that what if you had your own place? He proposed that you could afford it with your earnings and that your husband would be clueless. Maybe you're on to something, she thought. Their emails. Greg had suggested they have sex in Karen's marital bed, but she refused. "I won't betray Jason like that," she wrote. "The idiot has no clue." He replied, "I won't do it. What if you had your own place? Greg, you could afford it with your earnings, and your husband would be clueless." "Maybe you're on to something," she replied. "I have my own account, and Jason never questions it. I'll start looking." That was 3 months ago. The down payment receipt was just over a month old. "I got a condo," she told Greg. "I put a down payment, and I'm getting furniture next week." Jason's oblivious. "Perfect," Greg responded. "We have fun all over that place." Jason was stunned by this news. He kept reading the. "I said, I've got my own account, and Jason never questions it. I'll start looking into it." That was 3 months ago. The down payment receipt was just over a month old. "I got a condo." She told Greg, "I put a down payment and I'm getting furniture next week." Jason's oblivious. "Perfect." Greg responded, "We have fun all over that place." Jason was stunned by this news. He kept reading the emails. "Why stay with your husband?" Greg asked. "Why not leave and get your own place?" Believe it or not, I care for him. Karen said, he may be a cocky accountant at a tire store chain, but I have feelings for him, and he treats me right. I got the condo so we could meet without risking exposure at hotels, plus you're still married. Hey, just give the word, and I'll dump Chris. Greg said, why not stay with your husband? Karen replied, I don't know, maybe I should leave and get my own place. Greg said, believe it or not, I care for him. Karen said, he may be a cocky accountant at a tire store chain, but I have feelings for him, and he treats me right. Karen said, I got the condo so we could meet without risking exposure at hotels, and you're still married, right? Just give the word and I'll dump Chris. Greg said, a headache? Let me see after the conference. Karen replied, what happens after the conference? Greg pondered, Jason, begin printing out Karen's letters and copying the receipts he had discovered. Just as he was doing so, Karen's number flashed on the display. Hello, he answered cautiously. It's me, baby, Karen greeted. Are you okay? You sound off. Got a pounding? Greg offered to take care of it, but Karen said she'd sort it out after the conference. Greg thought about what happened next. Jason started printing out Karen's letters and making copies of the receipts he'd found. Just as he was doing that, Karen's phone number appeared on the screen. Hello, he answered, being careful. It's me, baby, Karen said. Are you okay? You sound tired. Just a headache, he lied, not wanting to upset her. Take something for that headache and rest. I love you and miss you, she added. Yeah, same here, he muttered, ending the call. He thought about whether she'd noticed that he wasn't being very affectionate. In truth, he was furious and determined to find out the truth about Greg. He started looking through Karen's company records. He had a headache, so he didn't want to upset her by telling her he was going to bed. She said she was going to take something for her headache and that she loved him and missed him. He said, yeah, same here, and ended the call. He thought about whether she'd noticed that he wasn't being very affectionate. To be honest, he was furious and determined to find out the truth about Greg. He looked at Karen's company website and found Greg Wilson, the regional manager. She was involved with her boss. He added the page to his pile, getting more and more annoyed. He thought about breaking into her apartment and checking her address. He hesitated, wondering about a security system. Looking through her documents, he saw a code labeled alarm system. Of course, she'd write it down. He thought to himself, as he closed her laptop and grabbed latex gloves from the garage to avoid leaving evidence, that it was a shame her loyalty didn't match her taste in furniture. He parked in her spot and approached her door, donning his gloves. He tested a key from her jewelry box, the door yielded, and he entered. Spotting the alarm remote, he input the code he discovered and ensured the alarm was disarmed. He switched on the light and had a good look around the apartment, impressed by Karen's taste in furniture. Shame her loyalty doesn't match her decor preferences, he thought, as he expected to find no pictures of him. This is her love nest, her retreat from our marriage. He went into the kitchen and saw that the fridge was empty and the pantry was bare. Switching on the light, he had a good look around the apartment. Karen's furniture choices were always on point, he thought, but her loyalty didn't seem to match her decor preferences. As expected, there were no pictures of him. This was her love nest, her retreat from their marriage. He went into the kitchen and saw that the fridge was empty and the pantry was bare. Surprisingly, the house was fully furnished, with flower portraits and a large flat-screen TV. He went into the bedroom and found it furnished with lace curtains hanging over the windows. There was an apparent fire hazard just above the electric heater. Opening the drawers, he found unfamiliar underwear and suspected Greg's presence from the men's department. The house was surprisingly well furnished, with flower portraits and a big flat-screen TV. The bedroom was also furnished with lace curtains hanging over the windows, just above the electric heater, which was clearly a fire hazard. Looking in the drawers, he found unfamiliar underwear and suspected Greg was there because of the men's undergarments. He took out his phone and took some photos in the nightstand drawer. A card from Greg confirmed his suspicions, "Thanks for the watch. It's great, looking forward to your housewarming. Anger surged through Greg. He imagined confronting him. More clothes, both male and female, filled the dressing room in the master bathroom. He noticed 2 toothbrushes by the sink. He took out his phone and started snapping a few more photos. A card from Greg confirmed his suspicions. Thanks for the watch. It's a great watch. Looking forward to your housewarming party. Love, Greg. Anger surged through him as he imagined confronting Greg. More clothes, both male and female, filled the dressing room in the master bathroom. He noticed 2 toothbrushes by the sink and his and hers towels next to the shower. He grabbed his phone and took a few more photos in the second bedroom. A small desk and chair were the only furnishings. A network cable lay on the desk, likely for her laptop, amid the letters addressed to her, all from utility companies. He made sure her name and address were visible in the pictures. Place curtains like those in the bedroom. He draped the curtains over the windows and the electric heater. He noted several potential fire hazards, including the absence of smoke detectors in the bedrooms and the old one in the kitchen. He wondered if it even had a battery. Confirming everything was as he found it, he switched off the lights, activated the security system and departed. He checked the locked door, went back to his car and thought about what to do next. He knew he could not trust her again, even if she cut all ties with her lover and gave up the apartment. He knew men often fared badly in these situations, but hoped her higher income would save him from alimony. He also thought it was a good idea to consult a lawyer before proceeding. He also hoped that her sole ownership of the apartment meant he wouldn't have to give it up or split the sale proceeds. He felt she had abandoned him by buying the apartment in secret, without telling him about the children. Custody and support were there were some issues, but he wanted to get even for their betrayal. He didn't want any violence, and he didn't want to go to prison. He went back home, looked in the phone book and found an ad for Gregory Wilson. He hoped it was the same Greg Wilson. He phoned the number for Wilson's house. A woman's voice answered. He had a problem with them, but he didn't want to use violence. He didn't want to go to prison. He went back home and looked in the phone book and found an ad for Gregory Wilson. He hoped it was the same Greg Wilson. He called the number and a woman answered. He said his name was Jason Chandler. She said yes, it was him. He said, "Who am I speaking to?" She said, "Mrs. Wilson." He said, "Your husband is the regional manager for Acme Real Estate." She said, "Yes, he is." He said, "But he's away at a conference this weekend and will be visiting other offices next week." "This is Mrs. Wilson." "Yes, it is. It's Jason Chandler. Your husband's the regional manager for Acme Real Estate." "Yes, he is. He's away at a conference this weekend and will be visiting other offices next week. You'll need to call the regional office and leave a message for him." "Actually, Mrs. Wilson, it's you I'd like to speak with." Redirected. "Yes, ma'am." Jason continued. "I hate to break this to you, but my wife is having an affair with your husband." "Are you certain?" "Absolutely," Jason asserted, "and I can provide evidence." "Do you have solid proof?" "I can even show you where they meet up, if you'd like." Jason offered. He heard her sigh through the phone. "Would tomorrow work for you?" "Certainly," Jason agreed. "What time suits you best?" "Around 1 o'clock?" At midnight, she said she'd like to know Ken's apartment address and directions. Jason said, "I'll see you then," and ended the call, smiling. He went to his desk and started making a to-do list. First on the list was changing the door locks, making sure it was done before meeting Greg's wife at Karen's place. He thought about drinking too much to feel better, but he decided to eat a cold pizza slice instead. At midnight, she said she'd be at Ken's, so Jason said he'd see her there. He ended the call, grinning, and went to his desk to make a to-do list. First on the list was changing the locks on the door, which he did before going to Karen's to meet Greg's wife. He thought about getting drunk, but he decided to have a cold pizza instead. He was happy with his choice, so he went to bed early. The next day, he went to the hardware store to get supplies to replace the locks and make an extra key for the apartment. By noon, all the locks had been changed. After showering, he grabbed his audio recorder and the printed emails from Karen's account, then went to her apartment to meet Greg's wife. He saw Karen's car and went to a Toyota Corolla nearby. There was an attractive dark-haired woman there. He was happy with what he'd found. The next day, he went to the hardware store to get the stuff he needed to replace the locks and make an extra key for the apartment. By noon, he'd done all the locks. After showering, he grabbed his audio recorder and the printed emails from Karen's account, then went to her apartment to meet Greg's wife. He saw Karen's car and went over to a Toyota Corolla nearby. A woman with dark hair was sitting in the driver's seat. He knocked on her window and asked, "Are you Christy Wilson?" She said she was. He opened the door for her and said, "Call me Jason Chandler." He gestured for her to put on latex gloves and said, "Let me in. I'll show you their hideaway. I've got the spare key. I'll unlock the door and turn off the security alarm." They went in. Jason guided her into the A woman with hair sat knocking on her window. He asked, "Are you Christy Wilson?" She said yes. "Call me Jason Chandler," he said, gesturing for her to put on latex gloves. "Let me in. I'll show you their hideaway. I've got the spare key." He unlocked the door, deactivated the security alarm, and they went into the bedroom. He opened drawers and found Greg's clothes in the closet. "Oh my God," she exclaimed. "I've been searching for these for weeks." She asked, "Where have his clothes been disappearing to? Has your husband been sporting a Rolex watch lately?" Jason asked. She said yes, it was a gift from management. Jason shook his head. He got a card from Karen's nightstand and showed it to her. Bedroom, opening drawers, and revealing Greg's clothes in the closet. "Oh my God," she exclaimed. "I've been searching for these for weeks. I was wondering where his clothes were disappearing." "Has your husband been sporting a Rolex watch lately?" Jason asked. "Yeah, it was a gift from management," she confirmed, shaking her head. Jason got a card from Karen's nightstand and showed it to her. Reading the note, she burst into tears. "Is that his handwriting?" Jason asked. "Yes," she sobbed, "but wait, there's more." He presented the emails and activated the audio recorder. Tearfully, she read the emails before listening to the Friday recording. "I'm sorry, Jason," she said, embracing him and restraining her own emotions. "It's not your fault. I've suspected something, but I just..." After reading the note, she started crying. "Is that his handwriting?" Jason asked. "Yes," I sobbed. "But wait, there's more." He showed her the emails and switched on the audio recorder. Tearfully, she read the emails before listening to the Friday recording. "I'm sorry, Jason," she said, embracing him and trying not to cry. "It's not your fault. I've suspected something, but I just needed proof." Composing herself, she faced him. "So, what's the plan?" she asked. "I'm filing for divorce," he declared. "And I'll kick him out as soon as I lay eyes on him." She vowed suddenly. "I have an idea," she exclaimed. "What if we help them move in together?" Jason pondered for a moment before smiling. "I like it," he agreed, "but we need to act fast. They'll be back soon. Greg said he'd be away for a week after the convention. I bet Karen will find a reason to leave," she revealed. To recalling the recorded conversation, Jason swore. "Damn, you're right," he admitted. "But I want her stuff out of my house pronto." Prado agreed. "I concur. Meet me back here in 3 hours." "Sounds good. I'll bag her stuff. I should be back in time. See you then." Rising, Jason observed her. He was struck by her petite stature and charm. He couldn't fathom why Greg would cheat on her. They left the condo and arrived 3 hours later. Their cars were brimming with bags of the couple's belongings. They dumped the bags into the sparsely furnished second. In the bedroom, they didn't worry about breakage, because they knew it would take the cheating spouse hours to sort through everything. "I don't know about you, but I wasn't too careful with his stuff. she remarked. Same here, Jason chuckled. I'm with you. I'm famished too, he admitted, glancing at her. I could really go for a juicy hamburger. A big cheesy one sounds perfect, he replied. I know just the spot. Care to join me? I'll treat you, she replied, heading. She followed him to the bar he was always going to with Ron. Christy looked at the building skeptically. A bar? She said. Trust me, they serve the best burgers here. You'll love it. He assured her that he wasn't planning to get them both drunk, but she hoped he wasn't. Okay, she said. But I hope you're not planning to ply me with booze and take it. He laughed and reassured her, as tempting as that sounds, I wouldn't do that. Darn, she joked, laughing inside. They ordered beers, burgers and fries, and exchanged stories about their failed marriages over the meal. They had a lot in common, met at college, got married quickly but then wanted different things when it came to having kids. He asked if she was a CPA, and she said no, but that she wanted to do it one day. Jason told her about his job and said there were opportunities in his field. Maybe we could help each other out, he said. He suggested she give him her CV. I can certainly do that, Mr. Chandler replied. Mr. Chandler, she said, taking a bite of her burger. His phone rang and Karen's caller ID was on the screen. They met at college, got married quickly but then their paths diverged. They both had dreams of having kids but then they didn't. He asked if she was a CPA, and she said no, that she wanted to be one someday. He told her about his job and how there were opportunities in his field. He said, maybe we can help each other out. If you give me your CV, I can help you. Sure, she said, taking a bite of her burger. His phone rang. It was Karen. He answered in a neutral tone. He said hello. Karen's voice was slurred from drinking. Hey baby, she chirped. What are you up to? I'm just grabbing a burger at the bar. He replied, what's going on? Guess what, she blurted out. I won the Best Salesman award. Congratulations, he said, flatly. Yes, and they want me to stay in Vegas next week to work with their agents, she continued, fabricating. I already knew it was a lie, he fed enthusiasm. What about? So, it's our anniversary this Wednesday, right? He reminded her that he knows and that he's sorry. She said sorry. Maybe we could celebrate next weekend, he said, no problem. He told her he understands that her work is important and that he wouldn't want her to miss a big opportunity. She asked what he meant. He just brushed it off, saying that our 10-year anniversary only happens once, but that he knows her job matters to her, so she shouldn't stress about it. She said that work matters, but that she thought he would be happy for her. He said that he is, and that he insisted she should go and work with her agents. He'll be there, he said. Fine, I love you, she said, affirming her feelings. Good, he replied, too. Bye, ending the call. He turned to Christy. That's that, he informed her. She shook her head, sympathizing. She picked Greg over your anniversary, she remarked, placing a comforting hand on his. He fought back tears. A man he barely knew showed more concern than his own wife. What a disappointment. I'm sorry, she offered. He managed a smile. He retrieved Jerry's card and dialed his private number. Jerry greeted him when the older man picked up. Just heard from Karen, Jason Chandler, who says she'll be in Vegas for another week. Jerry asked if he was wrong, and Jason confirmed. I was working on your report, but I'll get my guys to keep an eye on them. Jerry said they could proceed, as the conference wrapped up a couple of hours ago and everyone seems to be enjoying themselves. Most people will be heading home tomorrow, and by the way, your wife and her lover spent last night together. I've got some footage you might want. I'll send it to you as part of my report. That'll be great, Jerry. Jason said thanks and ended the call. He turned to Chris. Tomorrow we'll get to the bottom of this, he said. My PI caught those two lovebirds spending the night together. He's sending over some video footage. Would you care to watch it with me? Not particularly, she admitted, but I feel like I should. Understandably, he nodded. Let's head to my place. Rising, he suggested. After we settle the bill at the bar, they said, we'll head to his place. Once he'd got to his office, House settled in. The video came in his email. Would you like a drink before we get started? He offered. Sure, if you have it. I'll grab 2 colas, she said. He agreed, heading to the kitchen and returning with 2 cold drinks. They switched on the video and watched as Karen and Greg had various passionate encounters. Both Christy and Jason struggled to contain their emotions as they watched their spouses enjoying each other's company. The subsequent pillow talk was even more heartbreaking. What? So, do you reckon our spouses are up to right now? Karen asked if I know Chris. She's probably glued to one of her dull movies, I replied. Or nose deep in one of her silly books, Greg added. Yeah, I get what you mean. She agreed. I imagine Jason's buried in another one, I said. Do you think our spouses are up to their usual tricks right now? Karen asked. Karen, do you know if Chris is up to anything? Greg replied. Well, she's probably glued to one of her dull movies, or nose deep in one of her silly books. Yeah, I get what you mean. She agreed. I imagine Jason's buried in another one of his tedious spreadsheets or poring over stock reports. Greg smirked. You think he's out here saving the world or something? I mean, come on, his old man's company sells tires for crying out loud. What's the big deal? So, have you decided what you're going to wear? Greg smirked. You think he's out here saving the world or something? I mean, come on, his dad's company sells tires. What's the big deal? So, have you decided what you're going to tell that idiot? After tomorrow's awards banquet? Yes, she confirmed. I'll just say I was asked to stick around in Vegas for a week, filling in for the local reps. He'll believe anything I tell him. I could even tell him the moon's made of cheese, of green cheese, and he'd believe it. By the time he catches on, we'll be lounging on a beach in Hawaii. Greg added that he can't wait to see Christy flaunting that new sling bikini she got. Christy exclaimed that the idiot's whisking some Floy off. To Hawaii. I'm going to rip his guts out. She turned to Jason. Sorry for calling your wife of Floy. No need to apologize, he responded. I'd say the same thing. They refocused on the video. So, what about your anniversary? Are you just going to skip it, Hawaii? Sounds like fun, she said, more fun than a night at a steakhouse, right? I promise to make it up to him. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. You're ice cold, Greg, she said. Hey, it's only our 10th anniversary, she explained. It sounds way better than a night at a steakhouse, she said. I'll make it up to him, maybe. Or maybe not. Greg looked at her. You're just being cold, you know that, she said. It's only our 10th anniversary. She continued, there'll be more to celebrate later, right now I need you with those words. They got back to what they were doing, and Jason stopped the video. I've seen plenty, he said. Have you? Christy nodded, tears flowing down her cheeks. More than plenty, she confirmed. I'm booking a meeting with a divorce attorney on Monday. He said, would you like to come with me? Would you mind? She asked softly, not at all. He reassured her, and Christy burst into tears, sobbing. Jason wrapped his arm around her, offering a comforting shoulder. He felt like crying too, but he stopped himself, because he was trying to be there for her. Would it bother you if I spent the night here? She asked. No hanky-panky, I just want to cuddle, she clarified. Of course you're welcome to stay, he replied. Stay as long as you like, thank you, she expressed. I can't believe I wasted all those years on that idiot. All this time I've been falling for his lies. I totally get it, Jason empathized. He escorted her up the stairs to the master bedroom and found an old t-shirt. The shirt was long enough for her to sleep in, so she took it off and went to the bathroom to change. After waiting for her to come back, he put on his pajamas and got into bed. She came out of the bathroom wearing the long t-shirt. Shirt that was long enough for her to sleep in. Taking it, she went to the bathroom to change. After waiting for her to come back, he put on his pajamas and got into bed. She came out of the bathroom wearing the long t-shirt, and he was almost taken aback by her appearance. He always admired Karen's legs, but Christy had the slenderest he'd ever seen. She smiled as she got under the covers and asked, "What's wrong?" "Never seen a woman's legs before, never seen legs like yours," Jason replied. "Compliments will get you everywhere." Shirt, and he was almost taken aback by her appearance. He always admired Karen's legs, but Christy were the slenderest he'd ever seen. She smiled as she slipped under the covers. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Never seen a woman's legs before." "Never seen legs like yours, Jason. Complimenting a woman will get you everywhere." "Sir," she teased. He wrapped his arm around her, drawing her close, savoring her scent. She placed her hand on his chest, snuggling against him. "Did you know you're the only woman I've shared a bed with, besides my wife, for over 10 years, he confessed. "And you the only man I've been with, besides my husband?" She said they'd been staring into each other's eyes for what felt like forever before finally dozing off in each other's arms. The next morning, they woke up and cuddled. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she greeted. "You don't rush out on my account," she added, as he got up to use the bathroom. "Bathroom." "Good morning, beautiful," he responded. "I'll be quick," he thought to himself. He relieved himself in the bathroom, which proved challenging given his state of arousal. Upon returning, he found Christy already tidying up the kitchen and preparing scrambled eggs and bacon for breakfast. Glancing at the clock, he noted it was 8:30 a.m. He looked back at Chris, enjoying the sight of her cooking in his old t-shirt. "Good morning, beautiful," he replied. "I'll be quick." He relieved himself in the bathroom, which proved challenging given his state of arousal. Upon returning, he found Christy already tidying up the kitchen and preparing scrambled eggs and bacon for breakfast. Glancing at the clock, he noted it was 8:30 a.m. His gaze returned to Christy, enjoying the sight of her cooking in his old shirt. He momentarily reminisced about the times Karen used to make breakfast for them. "Wow, that smells amazing," he remarked. "I hope you don't mind me taking over your kitchen," she said. "Not at all," he assured her. "I can't recall the last time someone made me breakfast." "Karen never cooked for you?" "She used to," she inquired. "Yeah, but she stopped a while back. She said it took too much time and she needed to prepare for her clients." "Damn Christy," muttered. "Exactly." "Exactly," he concurred. He had a little reminisce about the times Karen used to make breakfast for them. "Wow, that smells amazing," he said. "I hope you don't mind me taking over your kitchen." "Not at all," she replied. "I can't remember the last time someone made me breakfast." "Karen never cooked for you?" "She used to," he acknowledged. "But she stopped a while back. It took too much time, and she needed to prepare for her clients." "Damn Christy," muttered the man. "Exactly," he concurred. The aroma of bacon filled the air as she placed a generous plate in front of him. He devoured the meal hungrily, as if he hadn't eaten in weeks. "Wow, that was amazing. Do you cook like this every morning?" he asked. "No, not every morning, but I do cook like this every now and then," she replied. "Hey, Jerry, it's me. Hey, 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 just to let you know, the plane had a 40-minute layover in LA this morning, and it left an hour ago. It should land in Honolulu in about 5 hours. I've got the flight details if you need them. Jason confirmed they're on American Airlines Flight 31. Jerry added that he's got a. Hey, just to let you know, they had a layover in LA for about 40 minutes this morning, and the plane left an hour ago. They'll be in Honolulu in about 5 hours. I've got the flight details if you need them. Jason confirmed they're on American Airlines Flight 31. Jerry added that he's got a contact in Honolulu who'll be tracking them once they land. Thanks, Jerry. Jason said, after ending the call, that he'd jotted down the information. He turned to Chrissy and said, well, here's the update. They're en route to Hawaii. As the plane ascended, Karen settled into her seat and glanced out the window, watching as contact in Honolulu is ready to track them once they land. Thanks, Jerry. Jason said, jotting down the information. After ending the call, he turned to Chrissy. Well, here's the update. They're en route to Hawaii. As the plane ascended, Karen settled into her seat and glanced out the window. She watched as they flew over the Pacific Ocean. This is it, she mused to herself, glancing to her left. She noticed Greg already asleep in the seat next to her. She closed her eyes, briefly reflecting on the past decade. Brief pangs of guilt swept over her for betraying her trusting husband. Somewhere deep down, she acknowledged this as just another in a series of poor choices, yet she justified it to herself. She hoped it would all resolve without Jason ever finding out. Perhaps their marriage would continue and they would grow old together, eventually retiring peacefully. Her initial misstep was disclosing. To Jason, she said she couldn't have a baby, even though she could actually. She didn't want a family, so she told Jason she had medical problems that meant she couldn't have children. He thought she was right, but then there were problems with the IUD, so she stopped using it because it was making her feel sick and have headaches. She tried the pill and the calendar method to avoid getting pregnant, but she still got pregnant twice. So, the first time was when her husband found out about her initial deceit and her reluctance to have kids, and he was worried about how he'd react. She decided to get an abortion privately, which was pretty bold. Luckily, they had set up separate accounts, as well as a joint one. At first, they agreed that she'd put 10% of her earnings into the joint account, but she changed the arrangement so she could pay for the abortion herself and keep Jason in the dark. Then, about 6 months later, she told her paramour about the second pregnancy and then she started having extramarital affairs, paying for it all herself. She was hoping Jason wouldn't notice she was loyal to her husband at first, but then one day she met a client who was ridiculously good-looking and rich. She made a decision she never regretted. They had some intense, passionate sex in a fancy house she was showing him around. He was grateful, so he bought the house. These kinds of encounters weren't common, maybe about 10 times. Over the next year and a half, she found out that other people were doing similar things. She felt a bit guilty, but she thought, what the heck, if other women could do it without getting in trouble, why can't I? It didn't have anything to do with Jason. She still loved him, and what he didn't know wouldn't hurt him. Then she met Greg, and everything changed. Greg was the opposite of her husband. Jason was all about making decisions slowly and carefully, while Greg just did whatever he felt like. Jason's life path, both personally and his job, had been decided on before he was born. He spent his career working in his dad's tire business, and he was set to become CFO and then president, and Greg's future was up in the air. He lived in the moment, while Jason thought about the future. They were very different in bed. Jason made sure she was enjoying herself, but Greg was more forceful and left her feeling shattered. At first, they met in secret motels or houses they were selling, but she got nervous about being spotted and told Jason or Greg so. After Jason had a bit of a moan about their relationship, Christy decided to take a step back from Greg for a bit and focus all her attention on her husband instead. But then she started to waver, and Greg tried to make things right. To avoid Jason finding out about their little secret, she decided to buy her own apartment so they could have their own space together. But even though Jason was pretty conservative, she still had strong feelings for him. They decided to file their tax returns separately, which meant she could leave with Greg while still getting some tax breaks. It seemed like a win-win for her. She thought it was a great idea. These events meant she could go to Hawaii with Greg for a week, pretending to be on holiday with her husband after their meeting. Greg told his wife about his trip, which was just a normal thing for him to do. She told Jason she was going on holiday for a week, too. She thought it was a great idea. She was going to spend a week in Hawaii with Greg, and she was going to pretend that she was on holiday with her husband. She told Jason that she was going to Vegas for a week, and he would believe her. She felt bad about missing their 10th wedding anniversary, but she promised to make up for it when she got back. She thought about the blue water below them as she smiled. She was thinking about Hawaii. Greg had bought a sexy bikini for their trip, and she was excited to watch her undress and have fun on the beach. The idea got her all excited, and she couldn't stop thinking about it. She even thought about meeting up in the bathroom later to do it, and she checked her phone for a message from Jason, who usually preferred calls or face-to-face. The idea got her going, and she looked at her phone, half expecting a message from Jason, who liked to call or face-to-face chat. A smirk played on her lips as a sudden shudder and change in engine pitch hinted at turbulence as the plane dipped and the engines altered their tone. She felt dread creep in. Glancing out of the window, she realized the gravity of the situation. Panic erupted in the cabin, and gravity pressed her into her seat. The sight outside confirmed their descent. Oh God, she thought, resigned to fate. Face-to-face communication didn't surprise her. A smirk played on her lips as a sudden shudder and change in engine pitch hinted at turbulence as the plane dipped and the engines altered their tone. Dread crept in as she glanced out of the window. She realized the gravity of the situation. Panic erupted in the cabin, gravity pressing her into her seat. The sight outside confirmed their descent. Oh God, she thought, resigned. This is it. We're going down. I'm going to die. Oxygen masks deployed. Passengers, including Greg, screamed as flight attendants braced them for the inevitable tears streaming down their faces. She cast a final glance at her phone, steeling herself for one last decision. Jason and Christy wrapped up breakfast, tidying away the last of the dishes, before returning to the table to strategize about their unfaithful partners. Jason, admiring Chris's analytical skills, Jason felt a new closeness with her that he hadn't felt with Karen for months. He returned to the table with a fresh cup of coffee. His phone buzzed with Karen's name and number. He put it on speaker and answered. He was greeted by Karen's panicked voice amidst background noise and distant shouts. Karen, what's happening? He asked. Chris was really impressed with Karen's analytical skills, and he felt like he and Karen were closer than they had been in months. He went back to the table with a fresh cup of coffee, and his phone buzzed with Karen's name and number. He put it on speaker and answered. He heard Karen's panicked voice over the background noise and distant shouts. What's happening? He asked, straining to hear her over the noise. Sorry, the plane's down, her voice crackled before the call abruptly ended. Stunned, Jason and Christy exchanged glances. They tried to call Karen back, but it went straight to voicemail. Turning to Christy, Jason urged her to contact Greg. He rushed to get her phone from her bag. Christy dialed Greg's number, but it too went unanswered, so it went to voicemail. Jason headed to his home office. He switched on his computer to see if he could find out more. After finding the airline's contact number online, he called them. After being put on hold for a while, he finally got through to someone who confirmed they were looking into reports of the plane crash. They gave him and Christy's contact details, as well as Karen and Greg's. They said they would be notified of any updates. As there was nothing else he could find online, he switched on his computer to try and find out more. After finding the airline's contact number online, he called them, and after being put on hold, he finally got through to someone who confirmed they were investigating reports of the plane crash. They gave him and Christie's contact details, as well as Karen and Greg's. They said they would be notified of any updates. With nothing further to find online, he estimated it would be at least an hour before they received any news. He went to the living room and switched on the TV, hoping to catch any news updates. Jason flicked through channels, but there was no breaking news. Thinking about the events leading up to this point, he glanced at his phone finally. A news network flashed a report that an American Airlines flight bound for Honolulu had crashed in the Pacific. They thought it would be at least an hour before they got any news, so they went to the living room and turned on the TV to see if they could find out anything. Jason flicked through the channels, but there was no news. Thinking about what had happened, he glanced at his phone. Suddenly, the news network showed a report that an American Airlines flight to Honolulu had crashed in the Pacific Ocean, but they didn't give any details. "Oh God, Christ," she exclaimed, covering her mouth with her hand. Jason gave her a silent hug, praying for Karen's safety. Despite the problems in their marriage, he couldn't bear the thought of her dying. An hour later, the phone rang. Jason turned off the TV and answered. A woman's voice said, "I'm calling to tell you that your wife's flight has crashed." Ocean, but without giving any details. "Oh God, Christ," she said, covering her mouth with her hand. Jason gave her a silent hug, praying for Karen's safety. Even though their marriage was a bit rocky, he couldn't stand the thought of her dying. An hour later, the phone rang. Jason turned off the TV and answered. A woman's voice said, "I'm calling to tell you that your wife's flight has crashed." He replied, "I don't have any more details right now, but we'll update you as soon as we learn more. Thanks." Jason ended the call. He and Christie held each other's hands, and tears welled up in their eyes. Not long after, Christ's phone rang, and it was her dad. He wasn't. Rewind a bit, Jason's parents were often in touch when they heard this kind of news. "Hey, Jace," his dad greeted him. "Just got back from church. Did you see the news about the accident?" "Yeah, I did. It's awful. By the way, how's Karen?" "She's not." Jason confirmed. "I'm sorry to hear that. Take a week off if you need to." That's what his dad said. Jason ended the call, and he and Christie held each other's hands, crying. Soon after, Christie's phone rang. It was the same grim news. Rare, his parents would often get in touch when they heard something like this. "Hey, Jace," his dad said. "How's it going, Jason? Just got back from church. Did you catch the news about the accident?" "Yeah, I did." "Jason, it's terrible. Hey, by the way, how's Karen?" "She's on her way back from Vegas. She's not doing well." "Dad, she was on that plane that crashed, right?" "What? What was she doing going to Hawaii without you?" "She was with her boyfriend." "Jason, close the door, please." "Oh my God. I'm so sorry to hear that, son. Take a week off. He told me that she was on the plane that crashed. I couldn't believe it. What was she doing going to Hawaii without him?" "He said she was with her boyfriend. I told him to take a week off and sort things out, and to let Mike know if there was anything we could do. I said I'd give him a call, and he said he was grateful when he ended the call." He felt a mix of emotions. On the one hand, he felt a deep sorrow at the thought of Karen being gone, but on the other, he felt angry about her betrayal. "And sort things out. Let Mike know if there's anything we can do. Just give me a call, okay? Thanks." Jason expressed his gratitude as he ended the call. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions. On the one hand, he felt a deep sorrow in knowing Karen was likely gone, but he also felt anger towards her for betraying him. Strangely, the absence of a divorce didn't bother him. However, the realization of shouldering Karen's final expenses, including the apartment, jolted him. "Damn," he muttered. He glanced at Christie, pondering how she'd cope and what steps she'd take. An idea struck him. He thought about how he was going to approach her. Why not sell your apartment and move in here with me, he suggested. Are you serious, she asked, tears brimming in her eyes. Yeah, I'm serious. There's a spare room upstairs and, with the upcoming challenges, maybe we can support each other. After a bit of thought, she said, why not? But only if you share my bed. What about that? He asked. I share your bed, she said. Right, well, I'm all for it, he said. Let's make it happen. After a quick think, she said, why not, but with one condition. What's that? What? He asked. I share your bed, she said. Really? He said. I thought we were moving quicker than this. He decided to see the moment. Sure, it had been ages since he'd felt comfortable with his husband. Last night was the first time in years he'd felt fulfilled. Is that all right? He asked. More than all right, she assured him. Okay, then, he said. I'll grab my stuff from home and be back tonight. I'll be here, Jason promised. It felt really good to be on the same page with my husband last night. I haven't felt this good in years. Is that all right? More than all right, he assured her. Then she felt better. She confirmed that she'd grab her stuff from home and be back tonight. Jason nodded. I'll be here, he promised. After that, she left. He dialed Lucy, Karen's colleague. Hello, she greeted Lucy. It's Jason Chandler, he identified himself. Oh, hi, Jason, she responded. How is Hawaii? I'm not sure, he admitted. I hear it's lovely this time of year. Why did Lucy's tone shift? Karen mentioned that you two were heading there after the company. Rewind a sec, the meeting. I figured you two were on your way there after the company get-together. Jason clarified, Karen went, but not with me. She went with Greg. Lucy exclaimed, oh my God, is that right? Jason affirmed. But neither of them made it. The plane they were on crashed in the Pacific Ocean today. You might have seen it on the news. Oh no, Lucy gasped. Do you know if she survived? I doubt any of them did. Jason, I'm so sorry. Please accept my condolences. I'll handle the paperwork, but I'll need details from the airline. Can you provide them? Yes. I'll gather what I can, Jason promised, but I have a question for you. What's that? Lucy inquired. Were you aware of Karen's affair with Greg? Jason queried. I had my suspicions. There were whispers, but nothing concrete. Lucy admitted. We tend not to gossip about personal matters in the office. I understand, Jason. She gasped. Do you know if she survived? I doubt any of them did. I'll get what I can, Jason promised, but I've got a question for you. What was that? Lucy asked. Were you aware of Karen's affair with Greg? Jason queried. I had my suspicions. There were whispers, but nothing concrete. Lucy admitted that we don't gossip about personal matters in the office. I understand, Jason. I agree. Well, that's all for now. I'll be in touch. Thank you. Lucy responded, and again, my condolences. That evening, while watching television with Chris, a news report about the crash was on. It said that the plane's final moments were captured by a crew member aboard a cargo airliner. I'm sorry to hear that. I'll be in touch. Lucy replied, and said that she was sorry too. That evening, while she was watching TV with Chris, a news report about the crash came on. It said that a crew member on a cargo plane that was a few miles away had filmed the plane falling down fast and hitting the water. The plane looked like it broke into pieces when it hit the water. The report said that the cargo ship changed course to look for survivors and that they found some bodies. The TV station showed a home video of the plane going down fast. It looked like the plane broke into pieces when it hit the water. The cargo ship changed course to look for survivors, and they found some bodies. Unfortunately, there were no survivors. They also found a lot of luggage, including belongings belonging to Karen and Greg. But their bodies were not among those found in the following months. Jason and Christy had a lot to do. Christy moved in with Jason and sold her own house. Jason had to look after Karen's apartment, which had nothing of value to him. So, he gave everything to Goodwill, who gladly accepted it. Later, he sold the apartment, getting back Karen's original investment. Both Jason and Christy got $500. So, Acme Real Estate paid out a pretty penny in insurance for the loss of their spouses. They got rid of any evidence of Karen as soon as possible, like photos and knickknacks, and replaced furniture, especially the bed. Family members took what they wanted, and the rest, including 2 cars, was sold, donated or scrapped. Jason also dealt with closing Karen's bank accounts, which took months of paperwork. In the end, Jason got a check for about $250. Jason and Christy were approached by a load of lawyers who wanted to profit from the accident. It turned out that the crew had misinterpreted the computer warnings and made some bad decisions, and the plane had descended at a rate of about $6 million was spent on lawyers, and even with taxes it was still a lot. The plane was going about 135 miles per hour when it crashed into the water after being on the phone with Karen for a few minutes. Jason thought it was really sad, and that she must have been really sorry when she realized she couldn't get out. But Jason thought it was a bit late. Luckily, the airline gave all the families about $175,000 each, so they were happy. Jason and Christy got a bit more than that though. After accounting for taxes, they still had a decent amount left, since neither Karen nor GRE's remains were found. No funeral took place, but Jason and Christy organized memorial services, mainly for their families. They didn't shed tears for their deceased spouses. 3 months into her tenure, Chris left her job to move in permanently with Jason. By then, they were deeply in love. One evening, while they were dining at a local Texas roadhouse, Jason proposed to Chris on one knee. She joyfully accepted. The nearby customers clapped and cheered. "It's about time you made an honest woman out of me," she whispered. "Why?" he asked. "Because you're going to be a dad." She told him, and he was so happy that he started kissing her. "I love you more than anything," he said. Rewarding her with applause from the other diners, he asked her to be his wife. "Because you're going to be a dad," she replied, her voice cracking with emotion. "I love you more than anything," he said, "and I love you even more." "Just one request," she begged. "What is it?" he asked. "Please don't ask me to fly anywhere," she pleaded, laughing. "Don't worry, my dear," he assured her.